The Adult Ballet Studio is a podcast featuring conversations with the empowering voices of the adult ballet community, a world where passion has no limits and dreams can take flight. My name's Elizabeth Blossfield, and I'm an adult ballet dancer and your host. Welcome to the studio. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to the Adult Ballet Studio. I'm so excited about this episode today because it's our 10th episode. I wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who's been a guest, listener, and supporter of this podcast for the past 10 episodes. And I'm so grateful to see the community that's formed around this podcast and around these conversations. I can't wait to see what's next. It's also an exciting Tuesday because we have a special guest in the studio today who's from my home state of Ohio. Ohio is where I first fell in love with ballet, so it's been fun to return to my roots for this month of March on this podcast. Jessica Wallis is the founder and executive director of the nonprofit organization Ballet in the City. This is such a great organization with the tagline Ballet in Your City and Beyond. It presents programming, educational opportunities, and events to promote and enhance the culture of ballet in cities all over the world. Jessica is doing great work with the organization to connect ballet enthusiasts with professional dancers, scholarships, and educational opportunities. She's a dancer herself and a two-time honors graduate of the University of Akron. She's been honored for her work with an official proclamation from the city of Cleveland, and she was presented with a Distinguished Alumni Award by the Cuyahoga Falls Schools Foundation in 2018. Jessica began studying ballet from a young age, and after retiring from performing, she began teaching before deciding to become an entrepreneur and start her nonprofit. The organization was based in Cleveland at its onset and originally known as Ballet in Cleveland, which is where Jessica and I first met about 10 years ago. I'm so grateful we met when she was teaching a dance class at my alma mater, Kent State University, and I had a chance to attend some events the organization put on early in its conception. Since rebranding to Ballet in the City and finding its home base in Jessica's hometown of Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, it's now a thriving organization with ambassadors and representatives in many different cities throughout the U.S. The organization began the Ballet in the City Scholarship in 2015 in collaboration with a dancer who's had a tiny bit of success since then, Misty Copeland, no big deal, to help promote equality in the arts for Black dancers. Ballet in the City also has a Guys Dance 2 program to make dance more accessible for men of all ages and abilities in ballet, and an adult ballet program, including a pointe program for adults who want to return to pointe or begin it for the first time. We're going to talk about some advice for adults starting on pointe and all of the other great things Jessica is doing to provide more access to ballet during our interview. I was so happy to reconnect with her for this podcast episode. Check it out. Hey, Jessica, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. Well, I was wondering, I guess just to start off, for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with Ballet in the City, if you could just sort of give a brief overview of who you are and the work that you do.
Of course. My name is Jessica Wallis, and I'm the founder and executive director of Ballet in the City, which is a nonprofit organization that I started in 2012, and it's changed quite a lot over the years, and I think that is a good sign of a fluid, functioning nonprofit, that it doesn't stay stagnant. I mean, any business really, but it doesn't stay stagnant, and it grows and moves and changes with the needs of the people that it's serving. Ballet in the City does work with professional dancers, both in the United States and elsewhere, and really largely, I would say that there's a few different priorities, but one of which, of course, is adult ballet, which I'm sure we'll discuss. But I've seen in the work that the organization's done over the years that just connecting young dancers with professionals is very powerful, and that there's many ways to do that. And so connecting young dancers, aspiring dancers with professionals, both in person and now kind of in this world we live in via Zoom, doing that quite regularly is a big part of the organization. Building community between dancers, of professionals and aspiring dancers, is another um, big priority of the organization. And then again, adult ballet is something that has become really important to the organization in the past couple of years. We've seen a bit of a resurgence with people that have loved ballet their whole lives, but never kind of felt like there was a safe place to get back in the studio. And I feel like that's very important. So we now have an adult ballet program in the city in which I live and grew up, and we have a lot of dancers that come to dance every week, which has been a really unexpected direction in which the organization's gone. But I think that the fluidity of ballet in the city, which means any city, anything that is needed, the organization's really been able to rise to that need and that occasion.
Yeah, that's exciting. I love all the stuff that you're doing, and I love the new adult ballet initiative too. That's exactly why I, wanted to start this podcast, because I was someone who loved dancing and couldn't imagine my life without it. But was like, what do I do with it now that I'm, an adult? I'm not doing it professionally. So I think that's great that you're providing those resources. And I know we met originally when I was in college at Kent State University, like way back, I think a decade ago. I took one of your dance classes at KSU, and it's been so exciting, like I said, to watch the organization grow. I know you said there's so much power in connecting dancers with, professionals. And I remember taking a couple of classes, I think with Ashley Bowder and some other dancers that you hosted at the beginning. And it was so important for me just to kind of reconnect with ballet and fall in love with it again in college. So I was curious what it's been like from your perspective, seeing the organization grow and seeing all these new initiatives kind of take off. I know you said you went in some directions you didn't expect, and it sounds really exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I do remember that, of course, when you came to take class, and I think it's so important. I will answer your question, of course, but we get a lot of questions when we have master classes, like about like age and level, which I know there's a practical aspect of that, but I'm always very careful to say everybody's welcome. It doesn't matter your age or your ability. Like a love for dance and a want to be there is enough for us. I think that's very important. Um, so yeah, kind of a little story to go along with that. I was recently at the Royal Opera House back in December with Bethany Kingsley Garner, who's the principal ballerina with the Scottish Ballet. She actually just retired, but she was giving the first portion of the master class, and with another teacher who trained and danced both with the Royal Ballet. And then after they taught, Darcy Bustle, who's one of the most famous ballerinas ever in Britain, was giving the Sugar Plum Fairy variation. And there were some adults in that class. And I was so impressed and I was so proud of them. Though I connected with one after the class, and to come to find out she's a doctor in London, and has such a successful medical career, but she was taking the time to come and be brave and be one of the few adults in the class and take these classes from these leading professionals in the UK. And I just thought, we can't put people in a box anymore. I think before, ballet wasn't always maybe very friendly to people who had stopped, like as you said, stop dancing and aren't doing it professionally, but want to keep it in their lives. It's a little bit daunting in the past, but I think the trajectory has changed and it's much more welcoming. And just to be able to see those adults in this like high intensity class with these top name professionals at the Royal Opera House, that they were just in it and they were doing it. And I think that's fantastic. So again, Ballet in the City really tries to be inclusive to all ages and to give everybody the opportunity. And I think we've always been like that, but I think that people are now becoming more brave, perhaps is the word, to come and participate as young adults and older adults in anything that they want to do, because that love of ballet just never goes away. So yeah, being able to see the organization grow and change. I think we used to present a lot of performances with professionals, and that was something that was really important to me. But it's difficult. It's difficult to do. I think there's the business aspect of things that you have to be very, very strong in as a leader in the arts, because your resources are so few and you have to use them wisely. And I just realized that perhaps performances weren't really the way to go. So it allowed us to refocus into some other avenues, and adult ballet being one of them, and then traveling to different countries in addition to different cities has been one of them as well. So that's been exciting. And again, I'm glad that the organization has the fluidity it has to be able to do really whatever is needed to go and fill needs and whatever niches in the ballet community exist.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I love that your organization has gone international now. And what an incredible opportunity for dancers of any age to study with those professionals at the Royal Opera House. I mean, that's amazing. So I know that, yeah, so we've talked about adult ballet. I definitely want to get back to that. But you have a lot of other initiatives too, where you're trying to sort of expand access to ballet. I know that you have a big focus on education and you have different educational programs that you offer. You also have this Guys Dance 2 program, which I think is so cool. I'm just trying to make dance more accessible for male dancers. So can you talk about some of the work that you're doing at that program, how it all sort of started and what you're hoping to achieve?
Yeah. You know, again, the word I keep using is that ballet has become, for various reasons, more inclusive. And I think um, even with that, I find, ballet is a very female oriented art form, even so. And I see, I have to kind of almost check myself daily because it's like, is everything I'm putting out kind of geared towards females? And it's tough, it's something I have to be conscious of all the time. And I just see, there's boys, young men that we see that want to dance and they just want to dance so badly. And you have to really want to dance if you're a male, because again, it is so female oriented, and it's just that's just the nature of ballet. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just the way it is. So I think that they need that extra support. That extra support is so important. They need to feel included. They need to feel like they have a very strong place in ballet, which they do. They need somebody to tell them that. And one of the things that Ballet in the City is doing right now with some of its representatives, they're called stewards. We have ambassadors and stewards. Is a good handful of our stewards are really actively pursuing trying to find professional jobs, and they're having a very difficult time. They all happen to be female dancers. And, I think sometimes the narrative is that male dancers have a much easier time because there's a lot fewer of them and that's a lot less competitive, which there may be an element of truth to that. But the journey to get there can be so much harder just for a lot of reasons, social reasons as well. And just perhaps the family that doesn't quite know how to approach, a girl, even in this day and age, a girl who's doing ballet is pretty common, but a boy who's doing ballet might not be, parents may not quite know how to navigate that, or they might not know what to do or what to provide for them. So that's really where Ballet in the City steps in, is to say we're a resource and we're here for you, and we can connect you with male teachers and dancers so that your dancer feels like they really do have a support system around them, and that there's wonderful, fantastic female dancers and teachers that would always be there for boys, but I think it's a little different. You kind of need that male influence as a dancer to hear someone that went through the trajectory that you're trying to go on. So just recently we connected a dancer from Pittsburgh with my friend Michael Patterson, who used to dance with the Pennsylvania Ballet, which is of course now Philadelphia Ballet. And Michael is just one of the most wonderful teachers, giving teachers, easy to understand teachers that I know. And I thought this is really an opportunity. So they got together over the weekend for some private lessons and some coaching work. And his mom told me that when they were leaving, they're like, okay, when are we coming back? Like, this is fantastic. And it just, it was just that one-on-one, again, personal connection to show that male to male, I'm here for you. I know what you're trying to do. I know what you might be going through. And also the technique of ballet is different for males. I think you really need a male teacher to show you how the body works and how to utilize the different muscles, because male and female dancers are built differently. And it's very helpful to have a male teacher that can really know what again, what muscles need to be utilized and how you need to work and how what you need to do. I think a lot of times not female dancers aren't all as well versed in the particular things that male dancers need to do to be really strong, like the jumps and the turns. Female dancers have to approach jumps and turns differently because of their body structure and muscular structure, and as well as just kind of like what's expected in ballet. Females have the element of point work, whereas males need to work on the strengthening for partnering and again, the jumps and turns. So really at the crux of it is just really a support system for male dancers, and also there's scholarship money provided for the males to study with the male teachers as well. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think that's so important, having that support system and that mentorship, someone who's been through what you're going through and who has succeeded in the art form. I think that's invaluable to a young dancer. So that's awesome. And I know you mentioned also your ambassador program, which I wanted to talk about because I think this is cool too. You have ambassadors that can bring ballet in the city to their city and kind of spread it all over the US and even all over the globe. I know that's invitation only. You apply on the website and then you get invited to become an ambassador. Can you talk about that program and how it all works? And if someone's interested in learning more, where they can go?
Yeah, I think you really nailed it when you said bringing ballet in the city to their city. That it's really what it is. We had an ambassador program years ago, and it got to the point where we had like a couple hundred people, and I'm somebody that's all about relationships. Like I like to build meaningful personal relationships with the people that are involved in our organization, and it just kind of got it was like the group got too big to manage in an effective personal way. And so then we segued it into what we call our city steward program, which is just people that are very, like our hashtag is like fiercely committed, like very fiercely committed people that are very committed to the organization, that are there to really have ballet in the city on their mind constantly and to know the best ways to promote the organization to their local dance communities. And then we had that very, very intimate group, but then we started to get a lot of people asking, well, I'd really like to be involved. Like, could I be an ambassador? Like, what can I do? So I thought, I think it's time to bring back the ambassador programs. We actually do have ambassadors and stewards both. Stewards are folks that have been around for many, many years and have kind of proven their again, fierce commitment to the organization. And then ambassadors, it's our way to bring new people in and to gauge their commitment and dedication and their willingness and ability to bring ballet in the city to their local dance communities. So, we have applications open every year to get to know people, and then we connect with them, and then, as you said, invite them into the program. So that's every year in October, November, the end of the year, because we start everything with ballet in the cities on the calendar year. I know a lot of arts organizations do like a fall season, spring season makes sense, but ballet in the cities on the calendar year. So we just do everything annually. So they apply to join at that time. People can reach out always at any time at our info@balletinthecity.org email or Instagram DMs. We're checking every day. But really, I think the biggest thing to me is just that it's a reciprocal relationship. It's not about, and not that there's anything wrong with programs like this, but it's not about like posting a picture or a reel and then saying you're an ambassador. Like it's really about a commitment and involvement, a relationship building with the organization and taking the mission of the organization to your community. We used to do quite a bit of programming in Michigan and then got away from that a little bit. And then we have several ambassadors in Michigan. So I'm going to be going there to 3 different studios this spring to go and take ballet in the city education master classes to their studios and talk about the organization and just kind of, again, share the mission and the work. And so it's nice because those ambassadors really bridge the gap between myself and the organization and the studios. And then we can have the programming grow naturally in that way. And as you said, we do largely, our ambassadors and stewards are in the US, but we have several a few living in London and then a few that live in Scotland. So it's been nice to see what the organization looks like in those different places.
So cool. Yeah, that's such an awesome initiative to spread ballet to everyone. And, I love the work that you're doing. I feel like you're doing so much good in so many different areas to make ballet more inclusive and diverse. Because I know that you also have scholarship opportunities. And one of the opportunities that you offer is actually in partnership with Misty Copeland to promote equality in the arts for African American dancers. And I think you mentioned on your website that Calvin Royal III from ABT is also a partner in that. So, can you talk about that scholarship program and how it came together, some of the work that you're doing with Misty and Calvin, and the ways that you've seen it benefit the dance community?
Yeah, Misty Copeland came to dance at our gala in 2015, and I knew it was just kind of at the time like the Under Armour commercial had just come out, and it was that during her time when like her star was really rising, and I knew that I knew that what happened was going to happen. Like I knew that her calendar was going to be booked totally, and she was going to not probably be able to work with the organization again just because of the nature of things. So I thought I don't want this to just be a one-off. Like I don't want her to just come and perform and then that's all. I knew that it could be better than that, and I knew it could benefit more people than that. So at first it was called the Misty Copeland Scholarship, but then she wanted to kind of pull back her name just because not for any other reason other than she just didn't want it to be about her. She wanted it to be about the dancers that it was benefiting. So we've given that scholarship to about I think 8 to 10 dancers now at this point, and some of them, like one of them is a professional dancer, one of them is a training with Joffrey. One of them is the training with Philadelphia Ballet. So, and we're all in touch with them in one form or another. So, and then Calvin got involved because he came to teach a master class for us actually in Michigan when ABT was on tour for Romeo and Juliet to the Detroit Opera House. And we were talking about it, and it was something very important to him. And for him as a male dancer as well, he wanted to be a role model in that sense. And so since he was working with the organization at that time, he was lovely to us. He gave us a wonderful backstage tour for our Ballet in the City group of the Detroit Opera House after the Romeo and Juliet performance. And we actually were able to take him to one of the Detroit news stations to dance on camera and just kind of share about the scholarship and himself as a dancer, and particularly what it meant to him as a Black man to be a dancer, which I think was particularly pertinent for the Detroit community. And because it was going on during the time of the American Ballet Theater, Romeo and Juliet performances there at the Detroit Opera House, it was in people's minds at the time, so it was very relevant. So yeah, we've been providing that just again as a support system and to provide a resource there for dancers that may feel like their journey may not be as easy it's never easy for anybody, but may not be as accessible as others. So it's been a real joy to build the relationships with both the dancers that have helped us herald the scholarship as well as the recipients.
What an incredible program. And that's so great that you've been able to provide scholarships for 8 to 10 dancers, like you said. And, Misty Copeland and Calvin Royal III are icons in the ballet industry. So what an amazing collaboration. I want to get back to our conversation about your adult ballet program too, because I think this is something that we haven't talked about a lot on this podcast in the past, but I noticed on social media that you have actually a pointe program for adults who are either starting pointe or want to just pick it back up. And I guess I was curious for adults who want to go on pointe, because I know it's not quite as common as, you see teens and preteens going on pointe. What are some of the things that they should consider? Is there anything that's different about an adult's journey to pointe than there is when you're an adolescent? Or, what should they know about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's funny how like we started the podcast, you just asking me how Ballet in the City has the work that it does. And I was talking about how it's grown and changed. And one of the things that I noticed is that access to pointe shoes, like there's a bit of a sourcing issue with pointe shoes. And it's been that way for several years. And so I kind of got in a lot of the dancers that I work with wear Freed of London pointe shoes, and they were having a very hard time getting pointe shoes. And so I thought, well, the job of a nonprofit is to serve a need in the community. And I saw it as a real need. And then, so that kind of segued into then when our adult dancers would come to take class, some of them were like, oh, look at all the point shoes you have. That's amazing. Like, I wish I could do that. And I'm like, well, why can't you do that? And they were like, really? So I think sometimes, yeah, like you said, like what should adult dancers consider? Or what do they need? I think that they need somebody in their corner to tell them that they can do it. Number one, it's really like that in life. Sometimes we don't believe that we can do something until we have somebody to tell you, of course you can do that. And it's no different with point. As you said, it's very common for teens and preteens, of course. Everybody that wants to go on point, they're waiting for their point shoes, and it's just kind of a normalized thing. But for adults, it's really not. So we started with one adult that was coming for private lessons, and again, do you need private lessons? No, but I think you do need someone that's going to be with you every step of the way. Like I kind of feel like ideally, like I do all the point shoe fittings and I teach all the point classes with one other staff member of Ballet in the City that's excellent. And I actually fit her in point shoes, and she and I talk all the time. So we have the same philosophy. But you certainly need someone that is very knowledgeable about the foot and the bone and muscular structure in the foot, and then what your foot needs as a result of that in a point shoe. Not all point shoes are the same, especially now there's a lot of different things being tried out. And not all bodies are the same. And then we're not all as strong. This is true for anybody, but we have different strengths and different weaknesses in our bodies. And when you introduce something like point, it's a very fun and exciting thing, but it can also be a dangerous thing if it's not approached properly. So I think knowledge from not only your point shoe fitter, but also your point teacher is extremely important. And they need to be committed to the safety of the dancer. I mean, that's with anybody, if you're a young dancer or you're an adult. But I think certainly someone that's willing to take the time to make sure that you're in the right shoe and that you're working properly in the shoe. I fit all of our adult dancers in point shoes, and I am their point teacher, so I know what shoe they have intimately, and I know what they're doing in class intimately, and so it's very easy for me to monitor that. So is that a necessity? No, but you just need to make sure that if it's the same person or two different people, that knowledge is there about safety and kind of how your feet work and what kind of point shoes you need for your foot. And then also on the other side, to make sure that you're doing the exercises properly to build that strength up, and patience, knowing it might take a little longer. We have, as we're adults, and especially if we're getting out of dance and getting back into dance, your body changes. And, I think what is accepted or normalized in ballet in terms of body type is a little more accepting than it used to be. But, I think for adults, it's still a different picture. So the teacher has to be cognizant of the dancer's body and what's safe and what, not limit them, but not push them too much, too far, too fast, and have an injury or just getting discouraged. So I think that, again, somebody to really believe in you and somebody who's very knowledgeable, both as a point shoe fitter and a point shoe teacher, is what is needed.
I think that's so true. And I like what you said about having somebody in your corner, because I returned to point like probably in my late 20s, and I felt so silly. I felt like, am I just being like a little kid going back on point? And, when I went for a fitting at a local dancewear studio, the fitter was so excited and so supportive of me as an adult going back on point. And I think that made all the difference. So I think that's really great what you're doing. And it's true, point is so hard. So if you're doing it at any age, you should be encouraged and not get discouraged when it takes a little bit longer. So I think that's good advice.
That's so exciting when you did that with point. I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful. Are you still doing it?
I'm still doing it. Yeah, I've been doing it for a few years. And I had been taking daily classes because I returned to ballet after college and just was loving it so much. And I was wishing that I could make a little bit more progress, because you get to a certain point and you're kind of like, I want this to be a little more challenging and I want to push myself a little bit harder. So going back on point was that for me. And I've been loving it so much. I mean, I'm definitely sort of back to the basics as, an adult, especially now in my 30s, but it's been such an enjoyable process. So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love that you have a whole point program for adults. I think that's exciting and so needed because it's so rare. And I know that, as you talked about, ballet can be sort of rigorous. There can be a lot of self doubt for dancers of any age, but especially for adults who are coming back to it. So I was curious how you what your advice is for dancers to sort of push through that self doubt when they're having bad days and kind of remind themselves to keep dancing and be patient with themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything you said too, to that patience. I when I teach our adults, I take class along with them. So I'm giving them the combinations, teaching them, watching them, and giving the feedback and corrections, and having the conversation around how to approach different steps or different goals, different things that we're trying to work on. But since I'm dancing as well, um, that is a narrative that I have in my head every class because I'm looking at myself not only as a teacher, but as a student. And I'm noticing the things that I don't like, or the things that need worked on, or the things that when I was dancing back when, it's like, oh, that was hard then and it's hard now. And to your point, it can be discouraging, but I think, you know, um, it's just going back to why you're in that studio to begin with. It's like, we you can love ballet as an 80-year-old man or a 2-year-old girl. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, ballet is this most beautiful, precious, magical art form for so many reasons. And it's like, yes, if we know about technique and we know what it's supposed to look like and feel like, and all of those things, but if it's not feeling like that day or that week or that month, that doesn't mean stop. It just means refocus on why you're there to begin with. We all have this very personal, I feel like, relationship with ballet. You'd have to, because it's too hard to do not to love it so much. So yeah, you just have to really remind yourself, like, what is it about ballet that I just love so much that it's driving me to be here, because that's what it's about. It's not because you fell out of your pirouette, or you are because your feet hurt and pointies really badly that day. It's like, why do we love this? And that's what to try to stay focused on, because it's very easy to be self-critical. I mean, I think that's why dancers are so successful, and no matter what they go into, because you just have to be so self-reflective and self-aware that lends itself to being successful in anything. So you just kind of have to keep the focus on why are you there to begin with? And it's because you love ballet, and it's not because it has to look or feel perfect.
Yeah, exactly. That's such great advice. Yeah, getting back to that love and passion for it is so important. And I know you mentioned that you take class alongside the dancers that you're teaching. So I feel like that's a great transition because I love to talk about anyone who comes on the podcast, kind of their own background. So I was curious, as a dancer, what was your first introduction to ballet, or how did you sort of get involved with it initially?
Well, that's a funny story because my mom, I come from a family of two girls, myself and my younger sister, and so I was my mom's, my parents first, and I think my mom just thought that, like, ballet was something that a little girl should do, so she proposed it to me, and she said, "Well, I think that you should take ballet." And I looked at her and I said, "That is the stupidest thing that I have ever heard, and I would never do that." And so then she dropped it. And then it must have kind of seeped into my mind a little bit. And then so I don't know how long later it was, 2 weeks or a month, I don't know. But I went to her and I said, "I think I'd like to take ballet now." So it had to, like, be my idea. Like,
Right.
it couldn't be mom's idea. It had to be my idea. So so luckily she was gracious, and didn't allow my initial smart comment to preclude me from ballet. So she took me to the studio, and I remember just walking into the studio, and it was something about, this sounds so strange, but like walking into the studio and feeling that sprung floor underneath my feet, and like just like this black shiny marley floor that I had never seen, and like feeling that springy floor under my feet, and seeing the mirrors. And my teacher had these sparkly, like, they must have been from like a jazz, like, a jazzy kind of like Fosse type number, that they were up, but they were sparkly sequined, like, bowler hats that, again, it's very Fosse, that were up along the top of the mirror. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, like this is like never, it's something I've never even seen before. This is so cool. This is magical. I want to be in here. And, you know, like all of us, the rest is history.
Right. I love that you felt the magic right away. That's so awesome.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I can still remember that. I like that, what that felt like. Thank you for asking me that because I haven't thought about that in a long time. So it's lovely to be able to have that feeling again.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, it's great to hear about it. I think, every dancer has a story like that where it all just clicks and you fall in love with ballet. And, after that, you became a dance instructor as well. So, what led you to teaching and what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I had to stop dancing because I was forcing my turnout all along in my training, and I didn't really know it. I didn't really know what that meant. I only just know that I knew as I was in a lot of pain. So when I teach, and in fact this weekend we're having a Q&A session with a couple of professionals from the States and a couple from the UK, and I encourage dancers to take part in those Q&As because you can ask them um, anything you want, but then it's also an opportunity to just have these conversations with dancers to say, like, you need to understand what you're doing physically as a dancer, because if you don't and you're not aware, you could be injured or you could really cause a lot of damage, or just, there's just many reasons we have to be so aware. But so I had to stop dancing because of that. And again, I've never lost this love of ballet, and I just knew that I wanted it in my life. And when I had to stop dancing, I had to make a quick trajectory turn because I wasn't planning on going to college. I wanted to dance. So I went to college, and that everything was just about academics and kind of like this normal life. And it was missing that magic of ballet. So luckily I had the opportunity to teach and did so for quite some time. And just, teaching just, it, it, it does just again refocus you on ballet in the sense of the magic of it, but also really what is required, and how serious a discipline it is, and how if it's not approached properly, you can be injured, or you can kind of walk away from ballet with a bad taste in your mouth if you don't have a teacher that is encouraging and doesn't really kind of take time to work with you. So I just always like to do those extra things with my students, like take them to see the ballet and show them, took videos in to show them balancing and showed them the more classical works, and just really providing them a love for the art form outside of just going in and taking class and leaving, just showing them the culture of it. So I think that kind of is what ultimately ended up evolving into Ballet in the City.
I love that. And I love that story too, because it's funny. I just had a conversation with another dancer for this podcast who had a similar story of sort of getting injured, having to walk away from performing and dancing regularly, and just feeling so disconnected from the art form for a few years, figuring out, what to do and how to sort of get back to ballet in a different way. And I love that you figured out how to do that, with Ballet in the City, and not only for you to feel so connected to the art form, but to bring it to so many other dancers who might feel the same way. And so I was curious what you've learned in that process, what advice you would pass on to dancers who are maybe in the same position, who are dealing with an injury, or who know that they're not going to, dance professionally, or want to sort of take a step back from performing, but still want to feel connected to ballet in some way. What have you learned about the different sort of opportunities for doing that?
Of course. Again, when I was growing up, I thought that there was only, like, you either were going to be a ballerina or that was it. Like, there was no other place for you in ballet unless you were a ballerina. And that's of course not the case. That there's so much you can do, that to have ballet in your life every day, if you're not wanting to or not able to be a professional dancer, or if you're an adult and that the professional track is not for you, but you want your life to be, you want ballet to be a part of your life, either in a big way or in an augmentative way. So, there's so much that you can do. There's again, people that work as, in ballet companies and do so many various jobs that are so vital to making a ballet company work, but you're not the dancer, but you're involved and immersed in it every day. You can teach. Some people have a talent for choreography that maybe they don't know because you're so busy being a dancer and dancing in the pieces that you don't take the time to kind of develop that part of yourself as someone that could be on the other side of things. So there's so much that you can do, you know, especially nowadays in ballet, that doesn't have to involve being a professional dancer. It's not at all or nothing when being a professional is concerned. So you can certainly be a professional person in the ballet world, but you don't have to be a professional dancer. And I guess I just never had anybody tell me that. And so I just had this drive to be a ballerina so badly because I loved it. And I just didn't think that there was anything I ever wanted to do. And so, I would say, think bigger. What can you do? Where can you fill a need in the ballet community that exists? Because the need is really out there. So there's just, I guess I would say to your question really is just think beyond just being a dancer and how can you have ballet in your life in a real way that doesn't consist of being a professional. There's so many options.
Yeah, there's so many options. And I felt the same as you, when I was growing up dancing, I feel like nobody told me that either. And I think there was sort of this culture of, if you're not going to become a professional, what are you doing? Why are you taking a ballet class? And I'm thankful that that's changing now. And there are so many open doors, but I think you're right. It kind of goes back to what you said about having someone in your corner and someone who, supports you and causes you to ask those questions about where can I fit or where can I fill a need? So I think that's great advice. And I know that you sort of found a big way to fill a need with ballet in the city. And I'm curious what it was like transitioning from, dancing, performing, teaching to being an entrepreneur and starting your own business. And was there anything from your ballet training that translated to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, great question. So when I stopped dancing, I did go to college and I finished that ballet discipline came back to help me because I finished college very quickly and then went on to get my master's. And my degrees were in education, so I actually was a full-time school teacher for 6 years, and I was fortunate to be in a district that was a very affluent community, and I was just just saying this for transparency, but I was paid very well and I made very good financial decisions for myself. So I only bring that up because when I knew, I was not happy teaching, and it had nothing to do with the kids or the teaching. It just had to do with everything else involved. Which, if anybody that's listening to this is a public school teacher, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But I knew I wasn't going to be happy, and I was like, I need to do something about this. This is not what I want for my life because I wasn't happy and I didn't want to get stuck. I wanted to move beyond. So that drive in me to be happy and to not get stuck in this life that I didn't want to be in was very motivating. And so I thought, okay, you're not happy. Why are you not happy? And at that time, I wasn't even teaching ballet because I was just so busy with school and it just wasn't something that I was able to do. And I thought, that's why you're not happy. Ballet is missing. You don't have creativity. And, ballet has always been such a part of your life. And that's why you're not happy. And I was like, okay, well, I've identified what it is, but, how can I harness that? How can I make this work for me and for other people? So that's at that time, there really wasn't a whole lot of ballet in Northeast Ohio. And if I wanted to go see like American Ballet Theater, I had to go to Pittsburgh or Detroit or elsewhere. I had to travel. Or if I wanted to get access to professional dancers, I would have to, there wasn't really anything going on like that in my community. So I started the organization and fortunately it just really took off and lovely people such as yourself came and took classes and got involved. And then from there, it was kind of a full circle because other cities started reaching out to me to say, hey, we like what you're doing. Could you do something like that in our city? And I was like, oh my gosh, of course. And so then that's how ballet in the city came to be. So the drive for me, like I had the opportunity in the sense that I had made wise financial decisions. So I knew I could kind of provide for myself while I was getting the business up and running. That's an important piece. I would not, if people are wanting to start something in a nonprofit or profit organization in the arts, I would support that completely. But there is the practical side that you have to know that you've got the structure underneath yourself to provide for yourself while you're making that transition. That's hugely important. Um, so yeah, that's a big piece of advice I would give. And I think again, just the driving factor for me was that I knew I wasn't happy, and I knew that there was like a place for me in the ballet world. And I guess I was just either brave or crazy or both enough to go for it. But I kind of knew that I could do it. So I
Yeah,
hope that answers
definitely.
your question.
No, that's a great answer. Yeah, I find that whole story really inspiring because so many people wouldn't ask themselves that question and would just kind of stay in a job because it's stable and kind of let themselves be a little unhappy. And it's great that you asked yourself, well, what can I do to make myself happier? And, ballet had been such a big part of your life that, it would be hard to just drop that and not have it be in your life anymore. So it's great that you made that transition. And I just find your whole story really inspiring. And I'm excited to talk to you actually for this episode because this is our 10th episode. We're a brand new podcast. And I know that Ohio is sort of where my love for dance happened. That's where we met and where the organization kind of began. So this is probably a silly question now because you're so international and such a big organization. But I was curious to kind of go back to your roots, how you're hoping the organization can continue to make an impact locally in its sort of hometown.
My hometown is the small town, Cuyahoga Falls, which is a suburb of Akron. We're about an hour from Cleveland, not quite. And that's where our studio is for our adult dancers and where we have our pointe shoes and our Ballet in the City headquarters when we're not traveling. I know that for me, one thing that an adult dancer, a new student that recently came to us said to me is she said, I looked up your program and at first I just started reading about it and I was getting discouraged because I thought, oh, this is probably like downtown Cleveland and I'm not going to be able to go and it's too far away. And she said, when I was in Cuyahoga Falls, I was just shocked. And I thought, how was something like this good, like just right in my backyard? So,
Yeah.
That felt good, and of course going to London and going to Edinburgh and all these wonderful international places that we're fortunate enough to present programming in is fantastic. I'm equally as proud to be able to provide something really meaningful for the people in my city. So we're doing good work in the tiny town of Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, but also internationally. So it really makes me proud. Our studio is in downtown Cuyahoga Falls, which has had a resurgence of its own. It used to be blocked off, like it was just a walking street, and now it's open to traffic. And there's been hundreds of businesses that have gone to locate downtown, and it's just really exciting to be a part of that and to be the arts part of that in our community of Cuyahoga Falls. So I'm really proud about that.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's something to be really proud of. And actually, I didn't realize that the studio was in Cuyahoga Falls instead of Cleveland. That's even more exciting to me because I grew up in Canton, just south of Cuyahoga Falls. And that story that you told about your student resonates with me because there aren't that many resources for ballet dancers in that particular area. So it's so cool that you're doing something locally for the community. So I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have someone that comes to study with us from Canton, and they're like, "Oh, it's not that far. It's great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for being here." So yeah,
Yeah,
all
that's
comes.
amazing. Yeah, if you're local, come through and see what Ballet in the City is doing. That's really exciting. And I know that you mentioned now you've expanded to London and Scotland and all these other cities. So I'm curious what the future is for Ballet in the City. What your goals are. If there's anything in the works that you can share that you're working on.
Yeah, I've been just very fortunate to connect with a lot of wonderful people in the UK, and anybody that knows me knows that I probably was born in England in another life. I absolutely love it, and again, I've just been so fortunate to connect with such lovely people there, and I really feel a connection to the dance community in the UK. We have a couple of ambassadors that are from Scotland, and they're young kids, and they're just so enthusiastic. And I think in the UK, I think ultimately like London is the place to be, but again, getting back to like parents that perhaps don't um, know the trajectory or know necessarily what to do to get their kids there or what training should look like or how to navigate the big city. That's an opportunity for Ballet in the City to help. I'm kind of have my sights set a little bit on doing a small summer program in London in 2025. It's something I'm kind of musing on, and we have a lot of other work going on there. Like in the meantime, until I can make it back, hopefully later this year. But we have some wonderful dancers from Scotland that also come down to London to do work. So that's going on in the interim. And then Ballet in the City also presents an annual summer program in Saratoga Springs, New York. If anybody's listening of any age, I would encourage you to come to Saratoga, not just for the Ballet in the City program, because it is open from young beginners all the way up through adults. We have an adult program in Saratoga, but it's just a wonderful arts-centric community. The New York City Ballet performs there every summer, and Ballet in the City is there during the New York City Ballet residency, and we have the New York City Ballet teachers teach for the program. But it's just there's life size, much larger than life size, actually, like 6 foot tall pointe shoe sculptures throughout the city. It's wonderful. It's very arts centric, and the Saratoga Performing Arts Center is a beautiful, beautiful outdoor amphitheater where they have like all kinds of, anybody who's performed at the Saratoga Performing Arts Center, and it's just this beautiful amphitheater surrounded by nature, and there's the natural water springs in the community, and there's the racetrack with the horses, and it's such a very historic place, and it's a place that loves the arts and loves the orchestra and loves the ballet. So definitely keeping our presence. This will be our 8th summer in Saratoga Springs. So I definitely want to keep that going for sure. So we can't imagine, Ballet in the City can't imagine a summer without Saratoga. So definitely keeping that legacy alive, and hopefully having some of our UK dancers come over, professionals to bring them to America, to let them see our beautiful country and like what ballet looks like here, and to share that. It's all about sharing ballet in whatever city we're in, and celebrating ballet in that particular city. So I think 3 things: just really being able to provide great local opportunities in Northeast Ohio for dancers, and keeping our presence in Saratoga, certainly, and then expanding into the UK, and I'm sure beyond.
That's exciting. Well, there's so much exciting stuff going on for you. I can't wait to see where the organization goes in the future. And, I'll include a link to the website for any listeners who want to check it out and see what you're doing. I'm definitely going to have to add Saratoga Springs to my travel list. I've never been there, but it sounds amazing.
Oh, it's just even a wonderful trip with friends. The downtown area, you can just walk, and they have, it's just, we call it the Saratoga magic. It's a magical place. So if it's ever somewhere you can go, you would absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like it. Cool. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We do have a last section on the podcast that I call the Petite Allegro section. It's just quick, like rapid fire questions. So I was curious, whether you're taking class or teaching, what's an item that you have to have in your ballet bag that you can't live without?
Oh, goodness. You know what? My journal, because I always take notes about students, and like whether like they need pointe shoes, or they need to work on this particular like I have one student I'm working with in a private lesson that I really need to get her fouettes down. So I'm writing down the mechanics of how we're approaching the fouettes. Or there was a combination we did in adult ballet last night. I was like, oh, I want to do this again on Saturday, so I have to write that down. So I would say my journal. It's a little ballet journal that my mom got me that I've had since I was little, and I just keep all my notes in it. So I can't do it that for sure.
That's such a great answer. Yeah, those journals are so important. And is there a favorite ballet that you have that you always have to go see, whenever it's in town?
I can't say that I do. I will tell you one ballet that I just am absolutely enchanted by is that goes along with my favorite ballerina is Theme and Variations, Darcy Kistler. That was the first time I ever saw Balanchine. Was on PBS when I was in 5th grade, and Dance in America was on PBS one night, and my grandpa called and said, have Jessica turn on the TV, there's ballet. And it was Darcy Kistler performing Theme and Variations. And I've actually never seen it in person, so I keep hoping that one year they'll bring it to Saratoga. So
Oh yeah, fingers crossed. That's such a great ballet. That's awesome. And I know your studio's in Cuyahoga Falls. What's your favorite thing about Cuyahoga Falls? Do you have like a favorite restaurant or favorite place to go?
oh, that's a great question. My favorite thing about Cuyahoga Falls is that it's my home. It's just like I was born there. I grew up there. My studio's there. I would say right now, my favorite thing about Cuyahoga Falls is the downtown area. Like I was so happy to be able to get our studio space in downtown Cuyahoga Falls because the downtown area is thriving. I mean, it's just anything that there is to do down there, you can do. There's the beautiful riverfront. There's wonderful restaurants. It's very walkable. We have, a beautiful fountain right now in the wintertime. There's an ice rink. There's a splash pad in the summer. There's band down at the amphitheater. It really does the motto for Cuyahoga Falls is the fun flows here because of the river. And I would say that definitely the fun definitely flows. The ballet flows, the fun flows. So
Everything flows.
It's my home.
That's awesome. I love that answer. Yeah, the downtown area is so vibrant in Cuyahoga Falls. It's one of my favorite places to visit when I'm in town. And then I know that you've put on a lot of great programs with ballet in the city. You've worked with a lot of really wonderful professional dancers. Is there anything that stands out as particularly memorable or, a great memory that you have from over the years with the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I know you had reached out right after your podcast with Phil Chan, and yeah, and I adored working with Phil Chan, and he was a wonderful partner to work with. And the Ashley Bowder project premiere in October of 2014. We like, gosh, I could cry. We sold it out. It was the first time that the organization had ever presented Balanchine. There was Indiana Woodward, who is now a star principal with the New York City Ballet, was still in the corps at that time, but she did the Tchaikovsky pas de deux in that. And then Ashley Bowder and Amar Ramasar danced Agon. And then it was the world premiere. It was sold out. We had this fabulous party afterwards. There was fashion designers there. There was musicians from, the master's program at Kent State that were on stage live performing at the dancers. It was just the absolute most magical, everything fell into place. And I think that that's probably my favorite thing that we've ever done.
Yeah, that's such a great memory. I remember being there. My husband and I were at the party, and it was just such a beautiful event. It was so well executed, and the party was so much fun. And you're right, Phil and Ashley Bowder and all the dancers that were there were so kind.
That you could share in it with us. Yeah, that's right. I forgot. This is all coming back.
It was so long ago. Such a throwback.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. I'm really proud of that Ballet in the City is an organization that you felt that you wanted to reach out to and that we could stay connected and reconnect after all these years. That's really important. Thank you.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that period of time really meant a lot to me because I had been out of ballet for a while and it sort of got me back into it. So yeah, I really appreciate you and all of the work that you're doing. And then just, the last question I always ask everybody who comes on the podcast is, in a perfect world, what would ballet look like or what would you want it to be?
In a perfect world, I think that ballet would be something that everybody had an appreciation for. I think that there's still so many pervading stereotypes about ballet, and that there's so many people that would never even give it a second thought beyond the conceived notions they have of it. So I think in a perfect world, everybody would have an appreciation for this beautiful art form that we love.
I hope for that too. And you're doing such great work to contribute to that change, by bringing ballet to so many cities all over the US and the world. And I'm really appreciative that you took the time to speak with me today. And I'm just curious if you could share, where people can connect with you if they're interested in learning more about ballet in the city.
Of course. You mentioned the website, which I certainly appreciate. Thank you so much. At this time, I actually reconnected with a friend of mine who is from London. All roads seem to be leading to the UK of late, but he used to do our website years and years ago and then got away from it. And then after I went to the UK, we were reconnected. So he is a web developer and he's going to be giving our website a little modernized facelift and uplift. But in the meantime, people can most certainly go to balletinthecity.org, or they may email us at info@balletinthecity.org, or certainly just send us the DM on Instagram and we'll be happy to connect there as well.
That's great. Yeah, well, we'll include links to the website and your social media in the show notes so people can easily find you. And thank you again so much for taking the time. It's been so great to reconnect with you and so fun to have this conversation and learn things I didn't even know about the organization and about you. So
Well, it's an honor. Thank you for asking me, and thank you for the work that you're doing to contribute to the narrative of ballet and just do so from such a pure place. And keep dancing. And I'm just so excited that you're doing that.
I love talking to Jessica, and all of the advice that she shared for adult dancers and dancers of all backgrounds resonated so much. I was really happy that we had a chance to talk about adults starting on pointe. I've had so many conversations with dancers about that recently, and it's something we haven't had a chance to address yet on the podcast. So I was glad to be able to do that. I remember attending that party in Cleveland that she talked about when Ballet in the City was first starting out. And I have a memory of Jessica saying that she couldn't wait for the day when Ballet in the City makes it big. And look at that. It has, and it's still growing. We hear it all the time on this podcast that so many dancers wish ballet were more widespread. And that's exactly what Jessica is doing by bringing access to ballet to so many cities. I'm grateful for her and her great work. If you're interested in learning more about the organization or connecting with Jessica, there are links to the Ballet in the City website and social media in the show notes. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in to celebrate our 10th episode and for your continued support of this podcast. If you're looking for ways to support this podcast's growth, we have a Patreon and are part of Spotify's listener support program. Links to both of those are in the show notes. But word of mouth is important to us too, so if you can spread the word about this podcast, share your favorite episodes on social media, or rate and review us on your favorite platform, it all helps. Stay tuned for another exciting guest on Tuesday, April 2nd. And in the meantime, that's the 2nd of the month, and it's also a Tuesday, so it's an extra special Tuesday. Anyway, in the meantime, happy dancing, everybody, and see you at the bar.